It's December 17th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with investigations zeroing in on President Yoon. The Constitutional Court has asked President Yoon to provide a written statement with answers regarding his impeachment trial by December 23rd, ahead of the court's first hearing on the case on December 27th. Prosecutors and a joint investigation team on Monday issued their second summons for President Yoon to question him over his martial law declaration, though it's unclear if he'll actually show up this time. The U.S. once again made clear that there is no wobble in the Seoul-Washington alliance even after the impeachment of the South Korean leader, stressing that the alliance is between the government and the people. The South Korean leader continues to face mounting scrutiny both by the prosecution and the Joint Investigation Unit, trying to summon him for questioning. Our Moon Hae-ryun leads us this morning.
South Korean prosecutors investigating the December 3rd declaration of martial law have issued a second summons to President Yoon, urging him to appear for questioning by December 21st. The summons was sent by the prosecution's special investigation team on Monday, but whether or not Yoon will comply is unclear. Last week, the prosecution made a formal request for Yoon to appear for questioning as a suspect on charges of insurrection and abuse of power. But this was declined by the president's legal representatives, who said that his legal team was not finalized. Should he fail to comply with the second summons, prosecutors will analyze his reasons for refusal and consider whether to issue another summons or seek a court-approved arrest warrant to secure his appearance. If he does comply, it would be the first time in South Korean history for a president to appear before prosecutors as a criminal suspect. The Joint Investigation Team, a collaboration between the National Police Agency's Special Investigation Team, the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials, and the Criminal Investigation Command of the Defense Ministry, were also unable to deliver a summons on Monday morning. The security staff at the presidential office reportedly refused to accept the summons, giving the suspension of the president's duties as the reason. The team then headed to Yoon's official residence, but staff there reportedly refused to cooperate. The police have stated that the summons has also been sent via express mail. It notifies Yoon of a request for him to appear at the CIO located in Gwacheon City in Gyeonggi-do Province on Wednesday at 10 a.m. for questioning on the accusations of insurrection and abuse of power. With President Yoon hit with a summons from both the prosecution and the CIO, eyes are on which agency will get to investigate the sitting president. Some expect that Yoon would favor being questioned by prosecutors, having spent nearly 30 years as a prosecutor and even served as the prosecutor general. Others believe Yoon should be questioned by the CIO rather than face former subordinates from during his time at the prosecutor's office. The prosecution continues to pursue key figures involved in the martial law declaration. Former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun refused to appear for questioning, and attempts to forcibly bring him in failed. Former Special Warfare Commander Kwak Jong-gun was arrested Monday, while an arrest warrant has been issued for Capital Defense Commander Lee Jin-woo. Prosecutors have also applied for a warrant for suspended Army Chief of Staff Park Han-soo on charges of abuse of power and insurrection. Meanwhile, the Defense Ministry confirmed that approximately 1,500 soldiers were mobilized during the period of martial law, following earlier reports by the police. The ministry is working to verify the exact number. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Now, the judicial procedures for Yoon's impeachment trial are picking up pace, with the Constitutional Court now looking for answers from the president ahead of his impeachment trial. It's set to carry out its first hearing on the case next Friday. Our Peunje reports.
South Korea's Constitutional Court has 180 days to decide whether or not to remove President Yoon from office. If the court removes Yoon or if he resigns, a presidential election must be held within 60 days. Court justices held their first meeting on the matter on Monday morning and agreed to hold a preparatory hearing on Yoon's impeachment next Friday.
The first preparatory hearing is set for Friday, December 27th at 2 p.m. Investigation records from the prosecution, police, etc. will be secured at an early date.
The court has also picked two justices, Lee Mi-sun and Chung Hyung-sik, to oversee the evidence examination process. They have also decided to form a legal review task force team composed of constitutional researchers. The court added that who has been determined as the presiding justice for the case will not be disclosed. Their identity is usually kept confidential, but it was disclosed in the case of former President Park Geun-hye's impeachment due to the significance of the matter. The Constitutional Court is typically composed of 9 justices, 3 designated by the President, 3 designated by the Supreme Court Chief, and 3 recommended by the Parliament. But amid a political deadlock, the 3 seats that were supposed to be recommended by the National Assembly have been vacant since October, and the court currently has only 6 sitting justices. Under South Korea's constitution, at least 6 out of a total of 9 justices must agree in order for an impeached president to be ousted. Technically, 6 justices could be enough, but they'd all need to vote in favor. However, given the significance of the case, experts believe the court would be reluctant to make such a historic decision without a full bench. So rival parties are now speeding up efforts to fill the 3 vacancies. 배은지, Arirang News.
And we're learning this morning that the Constitutional Court reportedly has asked President Yoon to submit a written statement with answers by next Monday ahead of his impeachment trial. We turn to Professor Lee Hyun for more. Good morning, Professor Lee.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
So what exactly are these written answers that the court is asking for?
So basically, when you have an impeachment process like this, you have a impeachment petition that will be delivered to the president in this event. So since the impeachment itself happened over the weekend, the earliest date by which the impeachment petition itself could be delivered to the president would be, of course, on Monday. And so in this case, when the impeachment petition is given to the president, there are responses that he can give as a result of the petition. So he's been given, in this case, 7 days to respond.
Right.
And in terms of the actual process, there's no requirement for him to actually respond to this, but it's a formal process by which he's put on notice by the court that the impeachment trial will begin.
So he has to submit a statement with answers. Now, another big judicial date for President Yoon is December 27th, when the court is poised to hold a first hearing on his impeachment trial. Now, we are exactly 10 days away from the first hearing date. What is this preliminary hearing, and why is it an important one?
Right. So after he receives the petition, now he's on notice that you have a trial date, or at least a trial preparation date. And the 27th has been designated for that point. And that is basically to assign the date to organize various kinds of procedures, for example, the arguments, the evidence and issues for the case in anticipation of a full impeachment trial. So this date is important because it is the date of preparation for basically the oncoming trial that's going to happen over the next 6 months or so, potentially. So as a result, this really is a formal date to put the parties on notice, but also the court is now putting into motion the whole dates for the trial and the trial process itself. So it's a date of preparation, essentially, for the trial to actually begin.
I see. And it's also been reported that a Yoon-appointed judge, he is Chung Hyung-sik, has been named as the presiding judge for this case. Now, this is a key role for any case, right? Presiding judge.
Right. So the presiding judge, basically, you can think of as a chief administrator for the whole trial process. So the judge himself, in this case, really doesn't have any impact on the actual result of the case. I think people are trying to figure out whether or not he will have any influence in terms of the actual outcome because he was appointed by President Yoon. But basically, he's an administrator in terms of the trial process. So every judge, of course, will have their independent vote in terms of whether to determine whether he should be convicted in terms of the impeachment. So the presiding judge basically handles a lot of the sort of roles with respect to, gathering of the evidence, appointing certain people, and then making sure that the trial process runs smoothly. So the presiding judge is a key role, but in this case, it really doesn't have this person won't have any direct impact on the actual outcome of the case.
So more of an administrative chief, like you mentioned. And to defend President Yoon, there will be a former Korea Communications Commission chief under President Yoon Suk-yeol. He is Kim Hong-il. Let's talk about him and also Yoon's legal team.
Right. So Chairman Kim, as you noted, he's the former chairman of the Korea Communications Commission. And so in this case, President Yoon has tapped him basically to lead the defense team that will defend him at the impeachment trial. Now, Chairman Kim has had a long, distinguished career in the prosecutorial service. He served also as the chairman of the National Human Rights Commission, and then chairman of the, as I mentioned, the Korean Communications Commission, but also served as basically chief of the Daegu High Prosecutor's Office, as well as providing, basic assistance with respect to various kinds of activities for the president over the course of his career. So he's obviously a very trusted person for the president. And, he's going to draw upon, of course, I think, a number of key high-level former prosecutors that will be brought in to defend the president in the impeachment trial.
Definitely. Now, Yoon's also under, mounting pressure from the prosecution, also the joint investigation team now, which are trying to summon him to for questioning over the martial law declaration. Now, which of the two do you think he is more likely to appear for? The one filed by the prosecutors or the one filed by the joint investigation team?
I think what you're seeing here is a classic sort of jurisdictional turf war, right, between the different investigative agencies.
Right.
As you mentioned, there's the Corruption Investigation Office as well as the Prosecutor's Office. Frankly, it's really hard to imagine, and as you reported, this would be the first time if he's in fact summoned and forced to actually be questioned. He'll be the first sitting president to ever be subject to a criminal probe. And so at some point, it's really hard to imagine that he'll actually go through with it. But I think under the law he must appear. So if you were given a choice between the prosecutorial service or the Office of Corruption, I think you have to imagine he would prefer probably the prosecutor's office, given his longstanding career as prosecutor general, and of course, basically his subordinates who were his juniors in that office, whom he at least has some acquaintance with. So I think he would probably prefer going to the prosecutor's office if he had to give it a choice.
All right, Professor Lee, thanks so much for connecting with us again this morning. We appreciate it. You have a good one.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
And this morning, acting President and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo is holding a cabinet meeting as the interim leader of the country after the suspension of President Yoon's executive authority. Han is likely to stress the need for close cooperation between the government and parliament, having backed the idea of creating a consultative body involving the administration and the ruling and opposition parties. However, Kwon Song-dong, the floor leader of the ruling People Power Party leader, has rejected the idea of including the opposition Democratic Party of Korea. Also on Tuesday, Han is unlikely to veto a series of contentious bills, including introduced by the Dept, including the Grain Management Act. The decision will likely instead be postponed to allow for further consideration through a special cabinet meeting. Now, if Han exercises the veto, relations with the opposition may become more strained, but if he doesn't, he could alienate the ruling party. Washington says that there has been no diminution in the South Korea-U.S. alliance after the impeachment of President Yoon Suk-yeol. According to U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller on Monday, the alliance between the two countries is not just between the leaders, but also between the governments and the people. The remarks came amid concerns that Yoon's impeachment could affect policy coordination between the two two countries. In the meantime, the UN also said on Monday that it trusts the strength of South Korea's constitutional system in regard to the impeachment of President Yoon. At a regular briefing at the UN headquarters in New York, the UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said the diplomatic organization saw constitutional procedures in action when the emergency martial law was lifted only after a few hours. The U.S. has acknowledged for the first time that North Korean troops have been killed while fighting alongside Russian forces in Kursk. While Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed confidence that 2024 was a landmark year in the war against Ukraine. Lee Seung-jae reports.
The Pentagon confirmed that a number of North Korean troops deployed to assist Russia's war efforts have been killed in action. According to Pentagon Press Secretary Major General Pat Ryder on Monday, the U.S. has information that North Korean troops have suffered casualties, including deaths during fighting alongside Russian forces. While he added that North Korean troops appeared to have joined in on the fighting just last week, the press secretary did not say the actual number of North Korean casualties. And according to the U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller, Washington's assessment is that the North Korean troops have entered the war and are considered legitimate targets for the Ukrainian military. The comments come as Ukraine's intelligence officials said some 200 Russian and North Korean soldiers are estimated to have been killed so far in Kursk. The U.S. also imposed more sanctions on individuals and entities linked to both North Korea and Russia. The Treasury Department sanctioned 9 individuals and 7 entities that are believed to have provided both financial and military assistance to Pyongyang. The State Department also issued sanctions on 3 people involved with North Korea's ballistic missile program. According to the Department of Treasury, Pyongyang is continuing its provocative actions, which include its recent ICBM test and military support for Russia, adding that those actions undermine the stability of the region and sustain Putin's continued aggression in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday praised his military's success in Ukraine and called 2024 a landmark year. Speaking to his top military generals in an end-of-year meeting, Putin stressed that Russia has the upper hand in the ongoing war against Ukraine. He also lashed out at the West's move to help Ukraine, calling it a hybrid war. And U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is looking to keep his campaign pledge of ending the Ukraine war by seeking discussions with both the leaders of Ukraine and Russia. Trump says he will look to hold talks in a push to end the war, adding that he has been troubled by the results of the war. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea's auto exports slumped on year in November, but their volume was still substantial. Our Park Kwon-woo has the details.
A fall in South Korea's auto exports last month. According to the industry ministry on Monday, auto exports in November were at around $5.6 billion, down by more than 13% on year. That was mainly due to the start of pilot manufacturing at a Kia Motors factory in the U.S. in November and reduced shipment volume caused by bad weather. Trade volume that month was still the second highest for any November, mainly driven by exports of hybrid cars. Shipments of hybrid cars have exceeded $1 billion for 4 consecutive months, including November. Over 50,000 cars were sold domestically, reflecting an on-year increase of more than 20%. A ministry official underscored that improvements have been made from the year before.
Looking at the cumulative volume, there has been an on-year increase of 0.4%, which is a hopeful sign.
However, one expert expressed concern.
The country's credibility is declining due to the impeachment crisis, and there have been difficulties in export negotiations. These challenges are making it difficult to meet performance targets. There's a high possibility of poor performance, especially in the first half of next year, given the lack of a president and critical unresolved issues.
The expert also noted the importance of negotiations with the U.S., especially regarding tariffs and the Inflation Reduction Act. He stressed the need for cooperation between the ruling and opposition parties to address these issues. The industry ministry said it would do all it could so that economic activities proceed as normal, despite political risks in the country. It added the government will fully support related industries to help achieve the goal of surpassing $70 billion in auto exports this year for the second consecutive year. Park Kwon-woo, Arirang News.
Now let's take a look at the stories from around the world with our Kim Xiang. Good morning, Xiang.
Good morning, Dami.
So Xiang, wasn't there a school shooting in the U.S.? What do we know so far?
Yeah, that's right, Dami. A school shooting did take place at a private Christian school in Wisconsin state's capital of Madison. Now, police say that a teacher and a teenage student were killed and 6 others injured from Monday morning's shooting at the Abundant Life Christian School in Wisconsin. Now, the suspect, a student at the school, was found dead when the police arrived. Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes said that they received the call of an active shooter at the Wisconsin school at 10:57 on Monday morning local time, and that they found multiple victims suffering from gunshot wounds upon arrival. Among the 6 injured, 2 reportedly have life-threatening injuries. Now, Barnes added that a handgun was recovered from the scene and no police officers had to fire their weapons. While police declined to provide additional information on the shooter, CNN reported that a law enforcement source confirmed that the suspect was a female. Authorities say the motive for the shooting is yet to be identified and that the suspect's family is cooperating with the investigation. Now, according to CNN, Monday's incident is at least the 83rd school shooting of 2024, the most school shootings in a single year since 2008. Moving over to Germany, the country's Chancellor Olaf Scholz has lost a vote of confidence in Parliament on Monday, paving the way for early elections at the end of February. Germany's parliament, the Bundestag, voted 207 for Scholz and 394 against, while 116 abstained. Following the collapse of Scholz's 3-party coalition government last month, the German Chancellor expected to lose Monday's vote. This will lead to early elections on February 23rd, rather than in September, as originally planned. Now, Scholz said ahead of Monday's vote that it is now up to the voters to determine the political course of our country, expressing an eagerness for the snap elections. He has been running a lame duck government after the Free Democrats left the coalition over the budget dispute, leaving the Greens and his Social Democratic Party with a minority government. The cryptocurrency Bitcoin surpassed $107,000 at a point on Monday, U.S. Eastern Time, according to CoinGecko, setting a new record high. The surge came shortly after U.S. President-elect Donald Trump reiterated his plans to create a U.S. Bitcoin strategic reserve, a tactical storage of the cryptocurrency, similar to that of its strategic petroleum reserve. Now, the global head of technology research at Wedbush Securities called it a new golden age for Bitcoin, saying that Trump's deregulatory environment is a huge positive for the cryptocurrency market. A Chinese businessman accused of spying for the Chinese Communist Party in the UK has been identified as Yang Tengbo. Yang, who the UK Home Office said was likely to pose a threat to UK national security, is under suspicion of engaging in covert and deceptive activity for the United Front Work Department, an arm of the Chinese Communist Party state apparatus. Now, Yang was banned from entering the UK in 2023, with a ban upheld by the UK's National Security Court last week. According to a High Court judge, Yang had formed an unusual degree of trust with the UK's Prince Andrew, who had authorized an international financial initiative to engage with potential Chinese investors and partners. Now, Yang has denied all accusations in a statement issued by his lawyers.
Overnight snow in western regions has led up, but freezing temperatures could make for icy roads, so drive carefully. It's going to stay bitterly cold all day, and we could be waking up to the season's coldest morning tomorrow. Biting winds will make it feel colder, with feels-like temperatures forecast to be around -10 degrees Celsius here in the capital. Then there will be a mix of rain and snow starting from the west coast. Most of Jeollanam-do province could see rain into tonight, and Jeju could see mix of rain and snow until Thursday. Some parts of the East Coast could see snow piling up to 10 centimeters. Now, afternoon highs top out at 3 degrees in the capital, but it will feel like it's below freezing all day under mostly sunny skies in many parts. Gwangju and Daegu should be topping out at 7 degrees Celsius. East Coast regions, including Busan and Ulsan, stay under a dry weather advisory. Now, prepare for frequent wintry precipitation if you're in the western parts of Korea this week. Jeju looks like having wet weather through Sunday. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have for this morning. Thanks for watching.